Good evening and welcome everyone to the Common Anomaly podcast. I'm your host, Stuart James. Joining me today, Clayton James. How's it going, brother?
I'm good. It's going all right. Honestly, I'm a little tired today.
Well, pick it up. We're on air. Today we're talking about the Backrooms. This is a really exciting topic. I'm actually really keen to do this one. At first, again, we're doing your idea. You pitched it to me, and I was immediately like, oh, I don't know. This is going to be a super short show. Right? I don't know if there's enough there to dig into, but I found loads of fun stuff to dig into with this.
Yeah, honestly, I was surprised you agreed to it so quickly. And then, honestly,
it was kind of arrogance. I was just like, we can cover everything. We're doing great.
You know why I pitched this? I pitched this because I thought we needed to just for a bit do kind of a hard pivot away from all the end of the world stuff we've been talking about lately.
Yeah, so good idea.
What about the Backrooms? Yeah,
just do something more fun, right?
Yeah.
And it is a lot of fun. There's so much stuff to get into that. But before we get into that, I just want to give a quick shout out to all our new listeners. We got a huge boost in listeners on our last episode, and a lot of Canadian listeners. Like we broke through into Eastern Canada. There was a lot of Ontario and Quebec and the Maritimes, which we haven't seen loads of so far. So it was really great to see. So shout out to all our new Canadian listeners. I hope you're come back, and you've come back for this episode, and we've earned a second listen from you guys, but glad to have you on board.
Yeah, I actually want to do like a quick shout out. I meant to do it last show, and I realized I hadn't. Like right when we finished recording, I said, I've got to clean that up next episode, because I talked about how when I was on vacation, we went on the ghost tour of the town. We went on a tour of an old nuclear missile base. Yep. I just wanted to thank Lucy, who is actually our tour guide on both those things. She's kind of a local guide in the area, and she does all sorts of local tours. So, yeah, I just wanted to say thank you, and hope you're listening out there. Yeah.
So, do you think that ghost tour was a mistake? Did you pick something up when you were down there?
Well, this is why I'm kind of tired today. I had a rough day yesterday.
Why is that?
Because I actually texted you yesterday morning. I said, oh, God, I think my apartment's haunted.
Haunted?
Yeah. So I woke up at 3 a.m. because every light in my apartment turned itself on at once.
Oh, man.
And that was so disorienting for me. That was so upsetting.
You sure you didn't just leave stuff on?
No,
by accident?
I'm very meticulous. I have what you'd call obsessive compulsive disorder. I have this whole bedtime ritual where I go and actually I unplug everything electronic in my house.
Oh,
and I check the locks over and over and over again.
Right.
I got to put my hand on all the burners on the stove to make sure they're off. Like nothing was left on. And then just 3 a.m, everything comes on at once.
Every light in
my place. And I it's one of those moments where you just shoot out of bed. You're like, what's happening? What's happening?
Yeah.
I get out of bed, I check the locks, like, is someone in my house?
Yeah.
And like, the doors were locked. I live alone. So I was like, what was that? Did I get up at some point during the night and turn everything on and have no memory of it? That's a disturbing thought.
Yeah. Probably not likely.
I don't sleepwalk or anything.
Could a power surge do that? I don't know if I've ever heard a power surge, like, turning things on when they were shut off.
Yeah. I think it's possible, but extremely unlikely, especially like every light turning on at once.
Did you talk to any of your neighbors? Did any of your neighbors have a similar?
I don't talk to my neighbors.
Well, that's spooky. That would freak me right out.
Yeah, so I just couldn't sleep the rest of the night.
Yeah.
So
anything else happen?
It was a rough day. I was just all day at work yesterday. I was just feeling distracted over this. Like, what was that?
Yeah.
When I got home, I'm like, okay, when I get home, I got to do a thorough search of my apartment.
Yeah.
Got to check all the closets, got to check everything. Make sure there's no, like, Mr. Spooky hiding in the closet or something.
Totally.
Nothing was missing. Nothing was out of place. Everything was fine. And then I, brought out all my old ghost hunting gear.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, so did you do a scan? You checked the EMF?
Yeah, I checked the whole place with the EMF. Nothing out of the ordinary.
Yeah.
Everything was more or less baseline.
Yeah.
And then I tried my spirit box, my ghost radio, and I asked it a couple of questions. I asked, is there a spirit here that was messing with my lights last night?
Yeah.
And, you get... And then I got a female voice, very clear, that just said, "Me. Surprise."
Oh man. Ew.
And then I'm like, okay, why were you messing with my lights last night? Is my next question.
Yeah.
And then I just get a male voice, and it just says, "Wake up."
Oh man. Spooky.
Yeah.
I just want to say for the audience, you might be picking up a little bit of whinging and wincing in the background of the audio there. We have a third co-host today. Our new mascot, Bumper, has decided to join us for recording, and she's having trouble settling in. So I think she'll settle down. But if you hear the odd noise or the odd bark, that's just our third co-host there. But okay, great. Why don't we actually... there she, she's upset she's not like the focus of attention all of a sudden.
She wants to be involved.
Yeah. But why don't we dive into it here? So do you want to lead us off? Why don't we talk about the origins? What is the Backrooms exactly? I'm sure there's tons of people out there who know what it is, but I'm sure there's a ton of people who have no idea. I've never heard of the Backrooms.
Well, before we get into the Backrooms themselves, I want to talk about a story that happened kind of right around the same time.
Okay.
Kind of. This is in 2017. I'm going somewhere with this. So we're going to Australia, Sydney, Australia. There was a man named Bernard Gore.
Okay.
71-year-old guy. He's in his early stages of dementia. He's medicated. He's getting by, but it's starting. You know, he's starting to get confused, lose his memory.
He's not super sharp anymore. Yeah.
Anyway, this fellow, he's from Tasmania, and he travels down to Sydney to visit his family. Now, he went to this place called Westfield Bondi Junction, and it's like Australia's largest mall. Massive, massive place. And he went there to meet his niece.
Okay.
His niece never found him. He went to the mall and he disappeared. There's CCTV footage of him entering the mall.
Okay.
And then he just disappears. He becomes a missing person.
Right.
And he's a missing person for almost a month. They searched the whole mall. They searched all the surrounding buildings. He was nowhere to be found. Just
All right.
footage of him entering. He never exits. So what happened was, I guess at some point he wandered off. He was looking for the washroom or something.
Yeah.
And he wandered into this kind of out of the way access door, which led into this giant network Bumper.
Why don't we pause for a second here?
Yeah.
Okay, we're back. Sorry, folks. We just needed to attend to the puppy. So, as you were saying.
Okay, yeah. Bernard Gore, he wanders into this kind of out-of-the-way door. It locks behind him. And what's behind this door is this giant network of fire exits, emergency access, maintenance tunnels.
Yeah.
And considering the size of this mall, this tunnel network was actually 14 kilometers in total length, or 8.7 miles.
Wow.
So it's just a massive maze. And it's described as, there's no signage. There's very little to no signage, and the few signs that are there are either really confusing or at some points contradictory. You know, like an arrow pointing in a direction that says exit, and you walk that way, and there's another arrow pointing in the
Opposite direction.
Exact direction you just came from, saying exit.
Yeah, I think we've all felt that at one moment or another.
All the doors look the same. There's very poor lighting, and as he kind of progressed into it, as he went deeper into this, every time he came upon a door he could actually open, it locked behind him.
Right.
As soon as he went through.
So there's no way to backtrack from where he came from. Yeah.
Yeah, and he unfortunately, Bernard, he did not make it out of this. He was found 21 days later,
Starved to death.
slumped against a wall. He had died of combination of dehydration and exhaustion.
Yeah. Oh man.
But they
That's
say
sad.
he would have been, before he eventually succumbed, he would have been in this place for about 4 or 5 days.
Yeah.
Just wandering and trying to find
Desperately
an exit,
trying to find a way out.
hoping someone rescues him.
Wow.
Now this was obviously got a lot of coverage in the news. Like, how could this have happened?
Yeah.
Well, this giant network of tunnels it was so large that any given point in it, chances are a person was going to walk through there doing actual work
Yeah.
maybe once a month.
Yeah.
And no one thought to search it because it was completely overlooked that there was this just out of the way forgotten access point
Yeah.
somewhere in the mall.
Yeah.
So that it was never bothered to be searched. And the coroner, he ruled it a death by misadventure.
Yeah.
But
He just took a wrong turn.
Yeah.
Poor guy was just looking for the bathroom.
entirely preventable. Entirely
Yeah.
preventable.
Yeah.
He's quoted as saying, "This unmarked space swallowed a man whole."
Wow. Wow, that's really eerie. That is literally a real life Backrooms story.
Yeah.
Yeah, which I didn't think existed. For those who don't know, the Backrooms is a fictional story.
Yeah, yeah. It's kind of like, it's gained quite a mythology,
Yeah.
since it started, and so this actually, ironically, started just a few years before COVID, in which we all kind of found ourselves in a liminal space
Of sorts, yeah.
of sorts.
Yeah.
Anyway, this goes back to a post on a site called 4chan.
Yeah.
If you're unfamiliar with 4chan, it's an online message board that's completely anonymous. You don't even have a persistent username on 4chan. You're just known as Anon.
Yeah.
And a series of characters. That's where the whole QAnon thing started.
Yeah.
Anyway, there was a message board on 4chan that was kind of discussing the concept of liminal photography.
Right.
If you're unfamiliar with that term, liminal photography, it's a style or genre or aesthetic in photography. And what it's trying to do is it's trying to capture sort of forgotten, abandoned, slightly uncanny looking places.
Yeah.
Think like your high school hallway
Yeah.
at night, abandoned.
Yeah.
Places you're not supposed to be, places you're not supposed to linger.
Yeah, and also I find it the kind of the cognitive effect you feel. It kind of relates to if you imagine anywhere that's normally crowded being empty.
Yeah.
It kind of evokes that feeling, especially if the area or the architecture makes use of brutalism, which most modern day
Yeah.
city architecture kind of fits into that brutalist category. Not a lot of color, a lot of gray tones, just flat concrete, right angles everywhere.
Yeah.
You see that a lot. And it kind of has this impact on our psyche for whatever reason, where it's a little disturbing if you linger in it, like you said. So that's liminality.
Yeah. And you know what? I've tried. I'm really into photography. I've tried taking some photos that would fall into this category. I'm not very good at it. It's harder than it sounds.
Yeah.
To get this just right, but if you manage to get this right in a photograph, it definitely conveys an emotion.
Yeah.
It's kind of an unsettling, eerie feeling, but also with a hint of nostalgia.
Right.
Because you look at some of these images,
Yeah, it's
and you
familiar
feel like,
yet disturbing.
You feel like I've been in this space before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Even though it's just some image taken by some photographer, probably on the other side of the world, you'd be like, I've been here before.
Mm-hmm.
I know I have. Even if you feel like you've been there in a dream.
Yeah.
Anyway, this forum was discussing liminal photography. People were posting various photos, and this one photo comes up. It was a very unsettling looking photo. It was like an abandoned. The origin of this photo has actually been discovered. It was a photo taken to document the renovations of like an old furniture store.
Okay.
So it was basically this very dingy, yellowing looking space with kind of moldy carpets and peeling wallpaper and drop ceilings and fluorescent lights, and there was lots of like false walls here and there because it was a furniture store. And very unsettling looking photo. And someone posted this and actually posted a backstory to this photo.
Right.
Kind of a spooky backstory to this photo.
Yeah.
And it basically said, if you're not careful and you no clip out of reality, you may find yourselves in the backrooms, in this endless non-Euclidean space that stretches out for 600 million miles of randomly segmented rooms and nothing but the feel of wet carpet beneath your feet and the sound of fluorescent lights buzzing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Beware if you hear something off in the distance, because it has most certainly heard you. It was just a spooky story. Someone decided
spooky
to
pasta.
write for this this photo.
Yeah.
But it really resonated with people for some reason.
Yeah, it kind of caught on.
Yeah, everyone latched on to this story and started adding to it.
Yeah.
And being like, oh, I've been to this place. I've been to the Backrooms.
Yeah.
And as more people added to this story, this whole mythology develops.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. That's part of the aspect of this whole thing that I really love. And if we want to talk about, what's his name? Kane Parsons.
Yeah, did you watch his web series?
Yeah, so he kind of was one of the followers of this 4chan post and developed it into a series of short films, which he posted on YouTube that went viral and thus really kind of rocket launched this phenomenon of that we call the Backrooms now into the cultural sphere. And yeah, I did watch the whole thing over the past couple days.
It's spooky.
It is spooky.
Do you know the guy that made that, when he made that, he was 17 years old?
Yeah, actually, I think he was 16 when he started. And he was 17 by the time he had kind of, I think, finished. And now he's working on an actual feature production.
Yeah, you know what? I don't think the actual movie's going to be as good.
Well, we'll see.
Because you know what? He was doing the web series. Like, he had complete creative control over that as his passion project. Now that he's got a movie deal, you know, the committee's going to get involved.
Totally.
And
absolutely.
bastardize the whole thing.
Absolutely. I did watch an interview from him. I'll post a link to it in the show notes. It was sadly just all about kind of creative process and, you know, his creative process of making the Backrooms, which is interesting, but it's not what I was looking for. I was looking for... because what I was curious about is why do we latch on to this? Like, what is it tapping into in our minds that's so interesting, right? Like, where do those feelings come from? From just blank walls and for fluorescent lights, and you know what is it about that atmospheric effects that's happening in the brain? And I didn't get that. They didn't get to that in the interview.
Yeah,
but it's funny. I was watching it. I decided to turn it on and do my homework, and I was watching through the entire series, which is about 3 hours long. And I just turned it on, and I was on the couch. She wasn't watching it with me. She was reading her Kindle and had her earbuds in. But the soundtrack is really kind of grating, distorted. Everything's shot as kind of like old VHS tape kind of thing. And she shut off her earbuds at one point, and she's like, what the hell are you watching? Right? Because she's kind of been just looking over her ebook, you know, at the screen a couple times, and she's like, I don't know why, but this is really disturbing, whatever this is. I'm not sure what it is about it, but it's freaking me out, and I need to go upstairs and
you know what that
not be around while I watch.
You know what the whole aesthetic kind of reminds me of?
What?
It reminded me of The Shining. The Stanley Kubrick one.
Yeah. Definitely hotels evoke that vibe.
Yeah.
If you find yourself in a big hotel hallway and it's deserted, you get that feeling.
Yeah,
right?
and what's The Shining about? It's like being in this giant hotel that is empty for the winter.
Yeah.
And it's just these three characters alone there.
Yeah.
It's a very liminal feeling movie.
Yeah, absolutely. Have you ever... something that had occurred to me as I was looking at this, it's not in my dream journal, but it occurred to me that I've had a number of different recurring dreams in my life. Mm-hmm. And I used to have, it's been a long time, but I used to have a recurring dream a lot about our grandparents' house. Mm-hmm. Right? And if you'll remember, it's like there was... the basement, you go downstairs and there's a second living room, and then if they were babysitting us when we were kids, that's where we'd go, because there was a family room down there with a TV, and we'd watch cartoons or play with Legos or whatever. But then there was a hallway that went to like a laundry room, and they had like a secret room in one of the closets.
Yeah, you'd open up this closet, and there was like a fake wall behind it that you could slide out of the way, and then there was like this tunnel to this
it was all
room.
concrete with a grate. And my grandfather, he would make wine down there. He was like a wine cellar.
And when the place was sold, that was actually like one of the selling points in the in the ad.
It was really cool.
A secret room.
But I remember having dreams about being at our grandparents' place, going into that room, but then there being another door.
Yeah.
and to another space, and then there'd be a ladder, and then there'd be this other section where you'd have to crawl through a tunnel, and it'd keep going, and it'd keep going, and it'd keep going. And I had this dream over and over again, and each time I have it, it felt very familiar. Even when I'd wake up from it, I would have to take a minute. It would take me a minute to decipher how much of that was real and how much of it was dream, because it felt so familiar every time I was there.
Yeah.
Like every time I'd have the dream, I would remember where to go. I would remember what was coming next as I traveled through all the various corridors.
Yeah, and you know what? I definitely have had similar dreams, not about that specific place, where it's weird, you know, in dreams sometimes you could go back to this familiar dream space over and over and over again. And it's usually somewhere that has that kind of liminal quality to it.
Yeah.
Where it just seems to stretch out forever. And I think that's a very common thing. I think that's part of why the story of the Backrooms resonates so much with people.
Yeah.
Why it struck such a chord is because it feels so familiar to people. Like, this is a place I've actually been.
Yeah.
Even if it's just in a dream. And I think, you know, beyond the just dreams, I think a lot of people can relate to that feeling of being lost in a place that just seems to go on and on forever.
Yeah.
Like you've kind of, you know, slipped into an alternate reality, and you're trapped there. I've got a story. This is from many years ago.
Okay.
I was, this was before I lived in Arbor Lake. I was living in Ranchlands at the time. Went to just hang out one evening with a friend of mine from work who lived up in Arbor Lake. And, you know, we were just hanging out, playing video games, watching movies. At about like 2 a.m., I'm like, yeah, I'm going to go home. He's like passing out. He's like, do you need a ride home? I'm like, no, it's just a short walk.
Yeah.
You know, Arbor Lake to Ranchlands. It's like a 15-minute walk. So as soon as I leave the house, and Arbor Lake, I live there now, so I know it quite well.
Right.
I didn't at the time. Now, Arbor Lake, it's very different from kind of where we grew up. We kind of had that house in Killarney.
Yeah.
You think Killarney is very inner city.
Yeah.
The streets all have this grid-like pattern to them. But Arbor Lake, you're up in suburbia.
Yeah.
All the streets kind of loop around in weird ways and curve in on themselves, and it's just all got this weird design to it. So I'd leave the house, it's like 2 a.m., it's foggy out, and I walk, you know, just a short distance from my friend's house. I have no idea where I am.
Yeah.
And as I kept walking, it just kind of started feeling like every single house I passed by looked exactly the same.
Yeah.
Like they were just kind of copy-pasted, exact duplicates of each other.
Yeah.
And
which a lot of suburbs have that quality, right?
Yeah.
It's like...
And as I'm walking, and this was before, you know, this was long enough ago, it was before, you know, real-time GPS was common on phones.
Right.
I definitely didn't have it on my phone. I was just like, I know I'm close to home, but I have no idea where I am. And it's foggy, and it's 2 a.m.
Yeah, and everything looks the same.
Everything looks exactly the same, and the streets all have this kind of looping, curving, weird architecture to them. Yeah. And I feel like I'm just going in circles.
Yeah. Well, I think we've all been there, right? We've all had that experience. When I was asking about, I was trying to explain kind of what liminality was to her, and what the fear factor of this and the story of the Backrooms was. And I was like, to me, it kind of strikes at the primal fear of being lost. Yeah. When you don't have your bearings and your mind is it's like you enter a different state of consciousness where you desperately need to find something to anchor yourself to the familiar. And everything's sort of familiar, but you can't find that landmark that orients you to where you are.
Yeah. You know what? This is
why it's a very primal thing.
This is why, as someone who has like grown up in Calgary and lived in Calgary my whole life, I hate going to Edmonton.
Oh God.
I hate going to Edmonton.
Nothing against Edmontonians.
No, I got nothing against people. Yeah. I just hate going there because I get the creeps when I go to Edmonton because everything looks so much like it does in Calgary. Right. You kind of feel like you're in Calgary, but nothing's in the right spot.
Nothing's familiar, so it's like you're in Bizarro World.
You have no familiar landmarks to tell you where you are.
Well, and that's where my mind went a lot, if I can take a brief little tangent myself. what I really wanted to look into, because I was really curious about what is this? What is this kind of primordial, primal instinct that's being triggered by this stimulus, right? Out of this story. And so I started looking at brainwave states and if there was any connections to brainwaves and liminal states, and there absolutely is. So part of what happens with brainwaves when you're in liminal state is increases alpha and theta waves. This is often observed during meditative practice, drowsy states when you're kind of in that hypnagogic state
Yeah.
between sleep, creative states when people are working on artwork. You can kind of enter the flow state. It's particularly the N400 event-related potentials. I don't know what that means, but that's just from a study where people were hooked up to EEGs and showing the different changes in brainwave patterns. Right? I was like, okay, I'm hearing meditation, I'm hearing creativity, flow state, but surely there's the other side of the coin. Surely there's a negative aspect to that, and there is. It is definitely connected to feelings of anxiety, emotional vulnerability, repressed memories. People will often have crying spells, extreme anxiety, emotional flooding, brain fog, disorientation, difficulty concentrating, impulsivity, highly suggestible states, depression, dissociative tendencies, right, are all associated on the negative spectrum when you look at high theta brainwave states. Right? But I just thought it was really interesting, especially the way the story got created. For me, it felt like I love these stories where they kind of create themselves out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's like the state itself, like it came from a post of this picture that had an emotional impact on people, and that created the narrative.
Yeah.
So it's almost born out of itself.
Yeah.
It almost created itself in this weird way. And I find that really interesting how that comes about and how it relates to the narrative itself. Because really, ultimately, the Backrooms is an expression of our own self-conscious, not self-conscious, I did that the other day, subconscious fears, being lost, of being disoriented.
Yeah, and it's such a huge mythology now. Like, I spent hours and hours on the Backrooms wiki because that original image of the, abandoned furniture store.
Yeah.
That kind of place is now known as Backrooms Level 0.
Yeah.
That's where you enter the Backrooms, and it goes on forever. But, if you wander long enough, you can find an exit. It might take you back to your own reality, or you might just enter Backrooms Level 1.
Right.
And there's all these levels. There's like, and people keep adding to them. I think there's thousands of them now.
Yeah.
Anyone can go on this wiki and post some sort of liminal photograph and give it a backstory. It's like, oh, that's a Backrooms level. I wanted to. I didn't have time. I wanted to go through my own photographs of my attempts at taking like liminal photos. I wanted to add my own Backrooms level and kind of leave my own mark on this mythology. I might still do that.
Yeah.
I might still do that at some point.
Yeah.
And we can link to it on the website.
Well,
maybe.
I really like kind of viscerally exploring our topics through the week when we're working up to doing the show. So yeah, and I played video games. I played Control. I don't know if you ever played Control.
No, I've heard of it.
It's a fantastic game. It really makes use of liminality. I'm pretty sure it was inspired by the Backrooms.
Yeah.
At some level, it came out like a few years after. I think it's 2019.
Yeah. If you get a chance, I have another video game recommendation for you. You should really play Post-Trauma.
Post-Trauma.
Yeah.
Okay.
Another game kind of in the similar vein. And you're kind of wandering around this very liminal space trying to find your way out.
Right. Well, and I also just found on the Meta Store, I had bought like a year ago, there's a Backrooms game, a VR game, which I played it once and died in like 5 seconds and just never turned it on again. It was cheap. It was like $5.
What got you? Because there's various entities.
It was the black stringy thing that screams.
The clump.
Is that what it's called?
Well, there's I'm gonna rattle off a list of entities here. There's hounds, skin stealers, partygoers, death moths, clumps. That's like a giant mass of human limbs that have been fused together.
Oh God.
Whisperers, smilers.
No, it was just the original OG tall black stringy entity
Oh,
thing.
so that's called a hound, and that's
Yeah.
like a feral humanoid that will shamble around on all fours, and it's basically a former human that's
Right.
gone mad from spending an eternity
being
in the
lost.
back rooms.
Right, right. Well, that's what got me. But anyway, I went back and revisited it because, like I said, I played it once and I was just trying to like capture the feeling. And it's small. It's obviously like an indie project of some kind. It's pretty basic.
Yeah.
There's only like 5 levels to it, so I was actually able to play all the way through it. But it does quite a good job for being very basic of just triggering those feelings. It's got the sprawling corridors in different stages. One looks like, like a parking garage, like you're describing
Yeah.
in that original story. One looks like the office space with the yellow wallpaper.
Yeah.
But yeah, it definitely does evoke those emotions, and definitely there's parts where you'll turn a corner and one of those black creatures that has this awful kind of grating scream as it chases you, and you have to run from it to get to the exit. Hopefully, find your way to the exit in time. It really does create that feeling,
Yeah.
that horror, which is the goal of the artwork that's being created around that.
Yeah.
So how do we tap into that? And it's definitely successful at it, right?
There's actually a level of the Backrooms on this wiki called the Endless Suburbs.
Oh yeah,
It's like
yeah.
level 93 or something.
I can
and I'm
believe
like,
that.
oh, I've been there before.
I think we've all been there before,
Yeah.
right? Who hasn't gotten lost in the suburbs? I'm sure that happens to everybody. That's got to be so relatable.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Do you have any other stories backroom stories you want to dive into?
I just found it fascinating that this whole story of the Backrooms is kind of like a modern day folktale. And
absolutely.
it has parallels in like so much other folklore. Did you
Yeah.
get into any of that when you were researching
Yeah,
this?
absolutely. It did strike me that this is not necessarily a new idea, right?
No, it's not.
It's repackaged in a modern context. But yeah, if you think about the labyrinth, or the what's the monster in the labyrinth? The
Minotaur.
The Minotaur, right?
Yeah.
It's exactly that. It's exactly that, or it's a Tartarus, which is also in Greek mythology.
Yeah.
It's the level below Hades, so it's like the basement of hell,
Yeah.
and it's was reserved as the prison for the enemies of the gods.
Yeah.
Right? Not necessarily described as a maze or being maze-like, more of a prison. But definitely you see a lot of in art and in movies and books and other stories, you see that maze-like shifting rooms aspect to it. And also just the sense of purgatory, the place in between places.
Yeah.
That's not a new idea. And yeah, definitely in fairy folklore as well.
Yeah, I found this great old Irish folktale called the Changeling Door. And a changeling is like a mythological creature. It will imitate you, it will impersonate you, it will try to replace you.
Yeah.
So the story goes that like if you pass through like what's called a fairy mound, you might be teleported to this other realm, the realm of the changelings.
Yeah.
Which is like kind of a mirror of our own reality, but everything has kind of like an abandoned, uncanny quality to it.
Yeah.
And once that happens, you will be replaced in our world with a changeling, a false version of you. There's
People, basically.
Yeah, there's a quote from the story. He came back from the hollow hill, but his eyes were wrong, and his tongue forgot the name of things. I found that really spooky.
Yeah, that's dark.
But
Very
anyway, something I wanted to do, because I know we're definitely in the realm of fiction here.
Yeah.
I wanted to just really explore this idea of what if this could be real?
Yeah.
And I don't mean in the sense of that poor man Bernard Gore,
Yeah.
or just finding yourself entrapped in real life liminal spaces. But I mean, like, what if the Backrooms? What if that was like some sort of parallel dimension,
Yeah.
like it is in the story? You could accidentally be teleported there and be trapped. How would that work?
Yeah.
So I really wanted to go down that path
Well,
for a little bit.
Before you dive into down whatever story you're about to tell, I absolutely think yes, it could be real because we do have those stories. You do
Yeah.
have those stories of people go missing,
Yeah.
right? And sometimes I'm sure there's obviously very normal other prosaic reasons why that would happen, but there's also really strange accounts of people going missing or people that get lost and come back, and the stories they will tell, again, very much like fairy folklore, where all of a sudden they're like, oh, hey, it got foggy. I got off the path I was on, and I was wandering around. Everything was really weird. Sounds didn't sound right. I couldn't find my way. And there'll be stories of that person being missing for days or weeks and search parties going out and searching the entire area. And they'll think they've been gone, an hour or two, and they're found.
Yeah.
And it's almost like they step out of time somehow and then come back. There's stories like Missing 411 is a great reference for stories like that.
Yeah.
But sorry, I don't want to derail you.
No,
you're on.
not at all. This is all great. This all ties together.
Okay.
So,
great.
yeah, I really wanted to be like, okay, if this could be a real thing, because we have all this folklore around it, how would that work exactly? How could you just teleport somewhere else? In the original description of that image, it says you've no-clipped out of reality. We should probably unpack that phrase a little bit.
Yeah, I'm sure people are wondering what does it
Yeah,
mean,
so
no-clip?
a no-clip, that's a kind of terminology from video games.
Yeah.
No clipping means it's usually used as a cheat code, or when they're building the game as a way they debug it.
Yeah.
It basically gives you the ability to pass through walls. And you can do this as kind of a cheat code, to just cheat your way through the video game level.
Yeah.
Or it could be accidentally triggered by kind of a glitch in the game.
Oh, I'm sure anyone who plays video games has had that happen where there's a wall there, but for whatever reason it's not solid and you accidentally step through it.
Yeah.
And you just fall into a void.
Yeah, or you just fall through the ground randomly into the unprogrammed nothingness beyond the video game level.
Yeah.
And what happens there is, because this is like a space you weren't meant to have access to, there's no way to get out of it now.
Yeah, you're stuck in it.
You've basically soft locked the game, and you have to reset and start over again.
Yeah.
So that's no clipping.
Yeah.
Clipping refers to like the collision detection between, your character and the geometry of the level.
Yeah.
No clipping is passing through it. So how could one no clip from our reality?
Well, this makes me think of like simulation theory.
Yeah. So there is that angle to it of, if reality is a simulation, a glitch could cause you to go to some other place.
Yeah.
Actually, not the route I went down.
No. Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I thought you were queuing me up for that.
No, I mean, you can talk about that, but that's totally not the route I went down. I went down this whole other route.
I don't have notes on simulation theory or anything, but I'm sure we could vibe on it for a second. Like, I'm sure most people will understand this argument in, I guess, speculative physics that our reality isn't actually reality. It's a simulation built by somebody else.
Like the Matrix.
Like the Matrix, yeah. And that's how most realities work. And the idea is that it kind of goes on forever. Any advanced intellect will eventually create a simulation of their universe, inhabit it with other minds that have no idea they're in a simulation. Those minds in the simulation will create their own simulations.
Yeah.
And thus, and that'll go on for infinity. And so the chances are that you're living in the base reality
Are very low. Yeah.
Is the general concept,
Yeah.
right? I'm shooting from the hip here, but that's my nutshell explanation of simulation theory.
Yeah.
Right?
That's
and so
good.
you would think if that was the case, there would be the opportunity then for moments like no clipping in a video game where you just accidentally, there's supposed to be a wall there, or there's supposed to be solid ground beneath you, but all of a sudden there isn't, and you find yourself in this other unprogrammed space, and you're stuck there.
Yeah. Like the Backrooms.
Like the Backroom.
So yeah, I actually didn't get into simulation theory at all, ironically.
I so thought that's exactly where you were headed with that. I thought it was just trying to serve it up to you.
I went into quantum tunneling.
Okay. All right. I know nothing about quantum
So
tunneling. Tell me about it.
let me explain the concept of quantum tunneling. So in quantum physics, matter exists. Any particle exists in a kind of a probabilistic state.
Okay.
It's expressed as a wave function. It can until that quantum state collapses. A particle is not in one space. It's a probability wave. It's in all of these spaces at once.
Yeah.
Now, because matter is mostly empty space, if one object encounters a barrier, think of like throwing a tennis ball against a wall. There is a very infinitesimal chance that it's effectively a 0% chance, but it's not quite zero. It's like I calculated it, or I got AI to calculate it for me, that an object the size of a tennis ball, throw it against a wall, there is a chance of 1 in 10 to the power of 10 to the power of 70 that tennis ball will just go right through the wall.
Wow. Right. Okay.
That every particle
very low, but
that
it's
makes
not
up
zero.
that tennis ball will pass through the empty space between the particles that make up the wall.
Wow. Right. Yeah. Very low chance, but not zero.
Yeah.
So it could happen.
It's a very small chance, and that's just an object the size of a tennis ball. Could an object the size of a person just quantum tunnel somewhere, just like walk through a wall or fall through a floor into some other place?
Well, if the chances aren't absolutely zero, then yeah, it could happen.
Functionally, they're zero. There isn't enough time in span of a million universes for that to actually randomly happen. But it's non-zero. So then I got looking into brain theory, which is another branch of string theory. And basically, brain theory describes this hyperdimensional space in which our universe, our reality, is one of just many that exist in hyperdimensional space.
Yeah.
Again, think of True Detective Season 1, where Rust is he's rambling about his whole philosophy of life, and he's talking about, he actually talks about brain theory.
Yeah.
He's like, if you were to, look at our world from, we look at our world and we see it as a sphere. We see reality as a sphere. But from a hyperdimensional space, from that vantage point, could we attain it? We wouldn't see a sphere. We would see a flattened circle.
Right.
All of matter in superposition, every space it ever occupied. And we're just like cinching through our lives like carts on a track. Everything you've done, everything you will do, it's already happened. It's already been decided.
Yeah.
Now, within this hyperdimensional space are these other realities floating around. If one comes into contact with ours, or it might be in contact with ours at several points, in that space, that space where the veil is thinner, the odds of a macro-sized object, like a person, quantum tunneling, actually go up quite a bit.
Yeah.
Become much greater than effectively zero.
Right.
I got Chatbot to calculate the odds for me of
Okay.
a person quantum tunneling into another universe.
All right.
It's about the same odds of winning the lottery 5 times in a row.
Right. Okay.
You do read stories about that, though.
Yeah, that does happen, right? Or there's people that get struck by lightning multiple times,
And once you're in this other universe, this would be another universe with different laws of physics. You would see these non-Euclidean spaces, spaces that don't conform to our laws of physics or our rules of logic, spaces that could stretch out for infinity.
Yeah.
Now, here's the creepy part of this. Here's the creepy kind of consequence of this. And this is why I kind of described reality being a flat circle and all matter being in a superposition. Because in theory, according to this theory, if you were to quantum tunnel into one of these other realities, your causality would be disconnected from our reality's causality. It wouldn't be as if you disappeared. It would be as if you never existed. So if you were to go to one of these places and somehow find your way back, you would come back. You might come back to a world where you had never existed.
Right.
Or you might come back to a world where you'd never left, and there's now a duplicate of you.
Right. Well, I mean, there's
Yeah.
doppelganger accounts.
And
So maybe.
I just found that weird because you do hear these stories out there in the real world of people that seem to have come from nowhere.
Yeah.
Did you read that story about that guy? It was in the early 2000s. He was just found behind a dumpster out behind a Burger King, and he had no memory of his former life. He had total amnesia, and they couldn't find this person's identity. They couldn't find his name. He just adopted a name because he had no memory of his life before the year 2004 when he was found behind a dumpster. He just came from some other place. Like he was just plopped on Earth from another dimension.
Well, is that so strange though? If someone's kind of homeless and living on the streets, not kind of in the world, would that be so weird that there wouldn't be any documentation of this person?
No, it's not unheard of. It just made me think of that phenomenon. You know,
Right. Yeah.
you've got so many missing people. It's like tens of thousands of people that go missing every year.
Oh yeah.
And most of them are resolved pretty quickly. Most of them are like runaways or things like that.
Yeah.
But at any given time, I looked this up, in North America, there are 50,000 unresolved missing person cases.
Yeah.
People that have just disappeared without a trace.
One day we should do an episode at one point on missing 411. There's a lot of great stories through that. I mean, great stories. They're terrible stories because some people are missing and never heard from again. But yeah, it's really fascinating stuff. It does make you wonder, like, what does happen to all these people?
Yeah.
And I mean, from an aspect to explore of could the Backrooms be a real place? I think so, even if we just didn't evoke it. I know I always go there. You're going to say it. But as a thought form.
A tulpa.
Yeah, not exactly a tulpa because it's a place,
Yeah.
not a specific entity. But it occurred to me, again, I go back to how did the narrative get created in the first place? It almost created itself out of nowhere. Mm-hmm. And it's so an ingrained part of our kind of root consciousness and psyche. But now that we've poured energy into the idea, it could be the collective psychic input put into this fictionalized place, but actually represents a connection to our subconscious that everybody shares.
Yeah.
Could we create that environment to represent that aspect of our subconscious in a real form? And then could people end up accidentally really interacting with it?
Well, since the Backrooms became such a phenomenon, there have been lots of stories about people coming forward and claiming they've had real life encounters, that in real life they have stepped into some other place and ended up in the Backrooms.
Yes, and if those stories are coming from 4chan or Reddit, we're gonna
dump a bunch of salt on it. Yeah,
huge,
I got
huge dash of salt.
I had a lot of fun going on Reddit.
They are fun though,
and reading some of these stories. Some of them are really, really spooky.
Yeah,
but
if you got a good one,
the source is Reddit. I've got a couple of good ones.
I'll allow one really good one. Give me the best one you've got.
Best one I got. Okay, none of these are very long. I'll just give one. So this is in 2017, just as the Backrooms was becoming a thing. This is at a hotel in Las Vegas called The Link. And this fellow on Reddit, who claims to be a professional musician, he was going down to the hotel lobby at about 3 a.m. Elevator gets to the lobby level, doors open, and he's not in the lobby. He describes this nondescript red hallway that he walks down and down some stairs, and there's a giant metal door which he opens. And behind this door is just a maze of nondescript rooms and hallways of, just fluorescent lights and yellowing wallpaper, and it seems to go on forever.
Yeah.
So he's like, what is this? What is this? So he backtracks. He gets back in the elevator. He goes back up to his room. He goes to sleep. He's like, I don't want to get lost there. Next morning, gets on the same elevator, goes to the same level of the hotel, exits at the lobby level. It's just a normal hotel lobby.
Yeah.
And he says he feels like some sort of glitch in reality happened. And when he got off that elevator, he went to the Backrooms. And he had the sense of mind to turn around and go back the way he came.
Right, before he got lost.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. Do you have a better one than that?
I got one more. So this one is from 2019. This person was part of a tour group. This busload of tourists from the UK, about 40 of them,
Yeah.
makes a stop at a Taco Bell in Pennsylvania.
Okay.
And this Taco Bell is kind of in a rural area. It's in the middle of nowhere. And they all get off the bus and get something to eat. This Taco Bell is described as having like this very outdated interior. Like it was a Taco Bell from the 90s.
Right.
And this is in 2019.
That's not so surprising.
No, I mean, like all of a sudden, this huge thunderstorm appears.
Yeah.
So they decide to wait for it to pass before they continue on their bus tour.
Yeah.
And what happens is this woman goes to the washroom, and she claims she was only in there for 2 minutes. Meanwhile, her friends are searching for her because an entire hour has passed,
Yeah.
and she is yet to reemerge from the washroom. In her mind, it's only been 2 minutes. Yeah. But according to her friends, she was gone for an entire hour. And that's a thread that comes up in these stories often is like time dilation.
I can just imagine a lot of reasons why someone might be in the bathroom for an hour at Taco Bell.
Yeah. So
not so crazy.
Anyway, when they leave,
when does this get weird?
When they leave, these tourists are talking to each other, and they're like, "That was a weird place. That place had a weird vibe," and they all seem to have different memories of it. They have different memories of descriptions of the cashier. They have different memories of the layout of the place. They have different memories of where the place even was. And later, when they try and look for this mysterious Taco Bell on a map, there is no known Taco Bell in that location. That Taco Bell never existed.
Ooh.
Hey, that's a good one.
That was terrible.
No, that
was terrible. Oh, they probably all just had food poisoning.
Maybe.
They all had different memories of what happened.
Yeah.
My goodness. Okay. Well, maybe that means we're wrapping up. We're at a really good time. If that's what we're resorting to, then maybe we should close it off. Do you have any other facets you want to explore here?
No, I think we've covered this pretty thoroughly. But stay tuned for a potential follow-up, because I do want to go through all my photos and find a really good liminal one.
Yeah.
And add it to the wiki, make it into a level of the Backrooms.
Right.
I really want to leave this show's mark on this whole mythology.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. A little tribute.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like it. Okay. All right. Thanks for joining us, folks. I think we're going to wrap it up there. Thanks for listening. If you stuck with us this far, please like, subscribe, comment wherever you're listening. If you have the ability to do so, we've been seeing a lot of growth on our YouTube. We had YouTube videos being fed out automatically through our RSS, but we finally clued in to get it on YouTube podcasts.
Yeah.
And that's getting a lot more volume, a lot more views. So yeah, check us out there if that's how you get your podcasts. Like, comment, subscribe. Also visit our website if you have the time, thecommonanomalypodcast.com. And we look forward to seeing you again next week. Have a great weekend.
Good night.
Good night.